So when people pursue newer hobbies later in life that they could probably turn into a career, a lot of them decide not to pursue it because then they'd be competing against people that have been doing it for their whole lives. And a lot of people like to look at it realistically and they realize that that probably isn't something that they can just do. For some people, however, this is different, and I feel like this is the case for Allyson Felix, an extremely famous track star that rose to fame in her high school career. That's when she first started track. And in this speech, I'm going to be detailing her early life before she even started track, her high school track career, and when she really started being known, her professional track career, some of the challenges she faced while she was running track, and then, of course, a lot of her successes. So, first, let's start off with her early life. Allyson Felix was born in 1985, and like I said, she wasn't really in track in her early life. She was always athletic and she was always a part of sports. So things like basketball, because she was really tall and she was on the leaner side, so it worked for her to play things like basketball. However, she was a little too lean, so people would make fun of her. And in high school, in her freshman year, she decided that she wanted to take up track for the first time. And it was within that first year that she made it to the state level, and she went to the CIF California track meet, and she made seventh place in that track meet. You got to put it in perspective. This is her very first year ever running, and she's running at the state level. The following year, she was awarded the girls' athlete of the year from Track and Field News, and then a year later, she was she went to the U.S. indoor track and field competitions, and there she won her first like second place medal. And in that same year, she went to Mexico City and bested her own time, running a total of 22.11 seconds in the 200-meter race. So within 4 years, she was already winning competitions and becoming second, and she only had like 3 or 4 years under her belt. It was in her senior year that the Olympics was taking place, and she was invited to Olympics, and this is her where she won her first medal in the Olympics ever. So she actually came second. She won her first silver medal, and this is again with only 4 years of ever running track, and that's really what started off her track career. After high school and her first Olympics in Athens in 2004, she transitioned to her professional track career, and in 2005 she partook in the World Championships, and it was here that she started really winning in those big championships. In 2007, 2 years later, she competed in those championships again and became the second female ever to win 3 medals in one championship. In 2008, a year later, it was again time for the Olympics, and this took place in Beijing. And she won 2 gold medals in this Olympics. These are her first gold medals, one in the 200-meter dash and another in the 4x400. After that, she continued to see successes. She attended all the other Olympics as well, so the one in 2012 and 2016. And in those two Olympics combined, she won a total of 3 gold medals and 1 silver medal. So just in the Olympics alone, she already had 7 medals under her belt. And this was just like 10 years of running in total. And she's competing with people who have been doing it their whole lives. So because of these successes, especially in 2008 and 2009, she signed a deal with Nike to be a sponsor for them because they started recognizing her success. And that's actually one of the biggest problems that she ever faced in her career, because in 2017, like 14 years after she had started running, her contract was about to be up. And this is when she started to really kind of settle down. So she was still running, but she just wasn't running as much. And Nike saw a problem with this because all they care about is runner performance. And if you're running less, then obviously your performance is going to lower as well. And because of this, Nike came to her and they said, we're going to cut your pay by 70%. And it's like, okay, but she's still doing the same work and she's still running and she's still doing everything that she was doing before. You're just saying, I'm not going to pay you 70% of what I was paying you before because you're not running as much as we'd like you to. And she addressed this with them. And in her words, they said, and I quote, that runners should just run and that's just business. So they didn't really care about what you had going on in life. And this was especially a problem for women because women want to settle down in life and they get pregnant. And when men want to settle down in life, they don't get pregnant. So that doesn't really physically affect them, and it affects women. And they're essentially just being punished for wanting to live their life outside of being an athlete. And Nike was essentially saying, like, we don't care about you as a person. All we really care about is you being an athlete. And so she didn't really speak out against them at the time. She was too scared because Nike was a big powerhouse in the industry, and one athlete speaking out against them could have major repercussions, and she was trying to start a family. So in 2018, she ended up getting pregnant And she hid it from Nike for as long as she could because a couple of her friends had been pregnant before as well, and Nike would like drop them off the contract because they don't see value in you if you can't run at the time, and pregnant women obviously can't run and compete. So she hid it for Nike as long as she could, but obviously you can't do that for forever. And Nike eventually found out about it, and it was then that she tried to negotiate with them again, asking them if they could amend their maternity policies in order to give women a little bit of leeway and a little bit of time to bring up the performance after they get pregnant. And they told her no. And that's when she decided to speak out against them in 2019 in a New York Times interview. And she was basically telling the public what she experienced. And that's where you got the quote that Nike said that runners should just run and that's just business. After that, she cut deals with Nike, and it was later in 2019 after she publicly added them that Nike decided to amend their maternity policies so that women could benefit, and they gave women 18 months in order to recover from the time that they had their 8 months before their due date and then 10 months after their due date. So they had time to recover as well. And she applauded them, but she didn't want to work with them anymore because, well, obviously they weren't a good company to work for. They don't have good moral values. So she decided to work outside of that. And so she didn't have anybody to really contract with. And for athletes, that's really important because you're a runner. You want to like sponsor shoes, things like that. You want to get business deals. And Athleta eventually approached her and they were like, we like that you stayed true to your character and you didn't just do what they wanted you to do because they wanted you to do it. You stayed true to yourself and you spoke out against them. And we like that about you. So they actually signed a deal with her. And that's how it was for about 2 years until her deal was up and she needed to find somebody else. And that was then when her brother Wes, another pretty famous track star, decided that they should start their own shoe company and try to go up from there. And they had a little bit of struggles. They had problems getting it greenlit. They had problems with getting people to invest in it, and they needed a designer because obviously they don't know anything about designing shoes. So it wasn't actually until 2021, about 2 years later, after the idea was proposed, that they even launched the shoe company. But they did launch it, and it's currently called Sash. It's important to know that in 2019, before she cut all deals with Nike, the reason she decided to speak out against them was because they approached her brother and they were like, we want your sister, to be a part of a campaign about empowering women. And she's like, a year ago, I tried to get you guys to uphold, put your woman on a pedestal, and you're basically like, no, behind the scenes, but now you want to do a campaign about empowering women. Like, that's kind of like double-sided, and that's pretty much what gave her the courage. But now that you know about most of her challenges, let's get started on her later track career and some of the last moments in her track career. And this is after she got pregnant. And for a lot of female athletes, especially track stars, getting pregnant can be the death of their career because it's very hard to bounce back from pregnancy. It takes a very heavy, physical toll on your body. And so in 2021, the next Olympics was coming up, and she decided that she wanted to partake in it. And this is when she was going to pretty much prove to herself and the rest of the world that she had what it took to come back after being pregnant. And that's pretty much what she did. In her first race in the 4x400, in the 400 meter, she won bronze. And she was pretty disappointed in herself because the reason she runs, and this is from her own words, she wants to win. So if she's running in the Olympics, she's running to get a gold, and she doesn't really want anything but that. But she was still pretty proud of herself. And then the next day in the 4x400, that's when she won her last gold. And for her, it was a pretty bittersweet moment because obviously it was the last time she was ever going to run. But she did what she wanted to do, and she proved herself to the world, and she accomplished pretty much everything that she wanted to accomplish. And by then, this is probably like her 8th or 9th medal in the Olympics, and even more under her belt in things like championships outside of that. So I hope this detailed a little bit about Allyson Felix's life, and if you didn't know who she was, I hope you know a little bit more about her now. In conclusion, Allyson Felix defied the odds that were stacked against her, since she didn't have the right amount of experience that you normally would have when you're an athlete. She rose to unlikely fame. She challenged one of the biggest companies in the world to stand on what her moral values stood for, all while proving to herself and the world that she could be one of the biggest track stars and phenomenal track stars in female history. Thank you.